Good morning, YouTube, and welcome to a special edition of the Billy and Rocky Show. And today we're going to talk about the media and their treatment of Donald Trump's candidacy. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is a segment I saw on the PBS NewsHour. It was a panel show. There were some not politicians, but journalists talking about the campaign because apparently they're experts. And this one fellow, David Brooks from the New York Times, he made a comment that kind of stood out in my mind. He said that the majority of Donald Trump's supporters were just these angry white men that were longing for the return of a country that would never be again. But that was not to detract from those that support him for legitimate reasons. Stop. Let's think about that for a minute. So what he said, really, is that the majority of Donald Trump supporters, especially angry white men like me, don't have that my reasons for supporting Trump are illegitimate. Really? Well, I'd like to know exactly under what criteria Mr. Brooks makes these decisions. In fact, I sent a letter to the New York Times requesting that very thing, some clarification. Excuse me, Mr. New York Times, but how do you determine whether someone's support for a candidate is legitimate or illegitimate? And by the way, and by what authority do you make these decisions? That's the first thing I want you to think about. Now let's move on to something I just saw in the Drudge Report. As you know, the Washington Post has made it quite clear that they're very, very unhappy with Trump. And I know you've heard me refer to the Washington Post as Mr. Bezos' Post because this guy at Amazon, this billionaire, bought the Washington Post because, well, that's what billionaires do. They buy their own little paper because their ego demands it. But Donald Trump did something pretty interesting today. He announced that he felt that Mr. Bezos was using his ownership of the Washington Post to influence the federal government in regards to tax policy towards Amazon, his business. Oh, I love kabuki theater, or should I say American politics. Yes, Mr. Trump has made it quite clear to Mr. Bezos that his actions will have consequences. So, let's dig in a little bit on this thing. The media has made it quite clear that they do not view Mr. Trump as a legitimate candidate. How did they make this determination? And by what authority do they make this determination? Well, the answer to those questions are the criteria on whether someone's support is legitimate or illegitimate is a non-starter. Everyone's opinion is legitimate in a democracy, and that is what we have here, unless somebody else tells me differently. Secondly, their authority to choose winners and losers in the political process is an authority they do not have. It is this authority that they have assumed. Now, let me tell you how things really work. If you're a citizen of the United States, no one gets to tell you whether your political leanings are legitimate or not. And at the end of the day, it is you and millions like you that gets to decide who rules this country. That's it. Now, these oligarchs in Washington and Wall Street. They don't think you know that. And I know that some of you might be concerned that somehow they'll use violence to steal your democracy. They won't. You see, they're cowards. Think about it. Did those guys on those talk shows look like the kind of men that would go in harm's way? That would bleed for what they believe in? Please. The first shots fired, they'll be the first ones out the door. No, you don't have to worry about them taking your democracy. The only person that's going to take your democracy away is you. And the only way that's going to happen is if you believe these guys. But I have faith in you. So, relax. The election's coming. Trump will be elected. These weasels will disappear. Competent people will come in. And the vigor to our country will return. That's something that I'm looking forward to. Enjoy the rest of your day.